My name is John Palmer and I will be your host for today's event. We are very pleased to be joined today by Edward Kerr, who is the Hydrogen and Advanced Technologies Lead at DFE, to present on hydrogen's role in NI's energy strategy. I would just like to hand over to Edward now, and following the presentation, as I say, we will have a Q&A to end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I'll just share my screen and I'll start momentarily. So, thank you very much to John and Leisha for putting together this morning's event, and many thanks to Hydrogen NI for giving me the opportunity to discuss developing the Northern Ireland hydrogen economy. And a special thank you to everyone who has joined the webinar this morning and showing interest in this topic. So, by way of overview, we'll go through a short introduction to the hydrogen economy, look at key opportunities for Northern Ireland, and then focus in on what we see as near-term, mid-term and far-term in terms of economic development. We'll look at the early hydrogen economy as it has developed so far, some practical first steps and some concluding insights before moving on to the discussion and Q&A. So, an introduction to the hydrogen economy. As noted by the new energy strategy for Northern Ireland, published in December 2021, hydrogen has the potential to become an important indigenous zero-carbon energy source cross-cutting all sectors, heat, storage, and transport, and will be a key anchor in a zero-carbon advanced manufacturing engineering skills future. Green hydrogen can be produced by electrolysis of water through an electrolyzer, connected to a renewable power source such as a wind turbine or PV array. Blue hydrogen can also be produced through steam methane reforming of natural gas, with the emitted carbon being captured in various mediums for repurposing. Now, before we continue, I'll tease out a few key points in this slide. So we reflect on a zero carbon advanced manufacturing engineering skills future. That speaks to our DFE 10X economy vision paper, the whole skills up future and the 10-point plan and the whole green agenda. And we look at the hydrogen has the potential to become an important indigenous zero carbon energy source that considers the key points of fuel resilience and energy security. And a last key point on there is at the bottom, just regarding repurposing. In terms of carbon and hydrogen can be mixed to create an e-fuel or a synthetic fuel, and that is a further component within the energy strategy is the transitionary fuels that we are going to use in our decarbonising pathway. There's key technologies under development in that respect with the likes of Catagen in Belfast, looking at an e-fuel blend which can be reused or used in existing diesel plant, for example. But hydrogen plays a big part there, and it doesn't necessarily need to be about fuel cells and hydrogen boilers. There is an opportunity in transitionary fuels, transitionary drop-in fuels, which can carry us forward along our decarbonising pathway. And there's some early work there being carried out by Queen's University Belfast with their carbon communities. And I would recommend, if anyone is interested in capturing carbon or synthetic fuels, they can contact the Bryden Centre to learn more. So, opportunities for Northern Ireland. What makes Northern Ireland niche, really, in this conversation? Northern Ireland is already a world leader in wind power generation capacity, and crucially, our future generating capacity, what we can bring onto the system. NI to produce green hydrogen when the UK and EU are largely focusing on blue, value and export and use of low carbon synthetic fuels, indigenous resilience. Now, with the recent publication of the UK energy security strategy, green hydrogen has started to come back to the fore, really, because obviously the carbon clusters across the UK steam methane reform natural gas. But for Northern Ireland, we have always had green hydrogen at the fore of our energy strategy because of our wind linked to our wind generating capacity. And that really provides us with indigenous resilience because we don't have to worry about sequestering carbon in steam methane reforming. However, we would stress that blue hydrogen still has a part to play in achieving early volumes in necessary hydrogen production. All components and expertise in the hydrogen economy are classed as advanced high-value products, high-value exports, and high-value engineering skills, which are attractive for reskilling existing engineers, transferable skills across jurisdictions. Academic world leaders at Ulster University, HighSafer, Queen's University, Belfast, Case, AMEC, amongst others, Gen Con, Belfast Met, CST at Ulster University, we have the Bryden Centre, all the work ongoing with courses at Southwest Regional College, Southeast Regional College. We really do have centres of excellence active, and a lot of reskilling and engineering training coming to the fore in the next couple of years. Key elements of opportunities. There's an entire piece around the hydrogen services sector. So safety governance, manufacturing techniques, expertise, opportunities in polymers and composites, manufacturing using AI and robotics, cryogenics and storage, chemical engineering as referenced, the synthetic e-fuels that we can develop. Opportunities in manufacturing specialist storage vessels, likes of Type 4, for example, for transport, or larger for land storage. Transport opportunities in maritime and aerospace. Further developing our land transport, buses, rail, and opportunities in electrolyzer and even fuel cell components. And then the compression and the refueling of future fuels. Looking to seize or develop into all of these opportunities will, not without doubt, expedite delivery of an indigenous zero carbon energy secure economy. So focusing in a bit more in terms of near-term opportunities, those on the call may have engaged with the Queen's AMEC research being led by Ernst Young, at the moment looking at 2020 to 2030, as in what are our near-term opportunities and immediate next steps for economic activity. Some of this information will have been noted in those workshops. Academia development to create the courses necessary to create a highly skilled advanced engineering workforce. Right bus fuel cell units within the UK Bus 3000 narrative. Type 4 storage vessel IP, and crucially, proof of manufacturing ability across multiple sizes, pressures, and applications. I'd reference the Automotive Transformation Fund, the SERVE program, which is open at the moment. I'm aware of a number of our leading manufacturers in NI and our competence centres looking at applications into that funding pot to proof our manufacturing ability of Type 4 storage vessels. Growing the electrolyzer asset base linked to our increasing wind opportunity. TransLink fuel cell bus orders. As the bus orders undoubtedly will grow, equally the refueling hub need will grow. And that's where jobs and opportunities will arise, because that requires operational maintenance and engineering coverage. Ensuring the I4C and AMEC projects develop through the Belfast Region City Deal support programme. That's active and ongoing at the moment with my team within DFE City Deals, and Invest NI with all the project partners. There's opportunities for engineering growth, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but it indicates some of our leading companies. Wrightbus, Infrastrata, Belfast Ports, NI Water, Artemis, Spirit, Catagen, CCP Cranston, Creative Composites, and then moving in towards the academic interface, NIAS, CASE, CST, Bryden, and I've mentioned a whole raft of others in that area. But expediting growth ensures sector leadership. And as you can see by a number of those companies, that they are leading in their sectors. So moving a bit further out in our mid to far term opportunities, and again, some members on the call may be aware of these with the DFE Matrix Frontiers Economic Workshops, which have been happening over the last few months, looking at the periods 2030 to 2050. Moving us further ahead towards net zero. We have the potential hydrogen blend to natural gas network infrastructure. I say potential because it's a developing pathway of blending percentages. Growth in wind base from 48% to 80% by 2030. And I'll just quantify that by saying the new climate change bill has increased the target from 70% to 80%, with the impact to be modelled. The energy strategy did model and reflect on a 70% figure. Obviously, we need to move in an agile manner and look at this new 80% figure. Growth in fuel cell assets and public transport. Bus numbers will grow. Additional chassis will come into play. Different sizes of buses moving into the community, and future rail options. A tremendous opportunity sits around the drop-in low-carbon synthetic e-fuels, as mentioned, to existing diesel engines, standby generators, dual fuel burning boilers, diesel engines in transport, maritime, and in air, especially sustainable aviation fuel, through the net zero, the Fly Zero program, is a tremendous opportunity within Northern Ireland, especially whenever we try to link it to the circular economy and the agri-food waste sector and all the bio waste in that respect. Crucially, we have to look at securing a highly skilled and agile hydrogen centre of excellence for Northern Ireland. I've referenced there the Belfast Region City Deals PS2 application, leading with Queen's University Belfast AMEC, partnered with the Mid East Antrim Borough Council, but in consideration of all of the key AMEC partners, looking to build on the phase 1 application to incorporate hydrogen capabilities and all of the necessary technology development working with hydrogen requires. Securing a highly skilled and agile hydrogen centre of excellence for Northern Ireland, as I say, is a key point, and it's one of the action points in the action plan, which came out at the start of the year. So, mature course provision across higher education and further education and advanced engineering scope for new jobs, and crucially reskilling as our existing economy transitions to a zero carbon future with hydrogen as a key pillar. Existing engineering expertise can be reskilled. Hydrogen technology is underlined by equipment that our existing engineers will recognise, but there's no doubt we do need new skills to work with hydrogen in a safe and competent manner. Ensuring that these skills land will give us global expertise, especially whenever we try to develop the hydrogen services sector. And obviously, in hand with that, we'll look at expansion of the Hydrogen Academy, which was just launched a few months back in Ballymena. Part of this work then is to ensure security of supply and fuel poverty mitigation by increasing a resilient fuel source indigenous to Northern Ireland, again, of which hydrogen will be a key part in conjunction with biomethane and other synthetic fuels. So where has the early hydrogen economy developed? In consideration of the hydrogen economy, there have been a number of commissioned engineering project firsts and funding actions, such as TransLink is now operating 3-number fuel cell electric buses. There's an additional order of 20, and further buses are expected to be ordered. The Long Mountain Wind Farm, operated by Energia, is expected to power an electrolyzer to produce the green hydrogen needed to fuel these buses, with a refueling point in Belfast. That capacity will grow as the bus numbers grow. A number of synthetic fuel diesel replacement trials at scale have taken place in Belfast and Greater Belfast, and they have proved successful. In this instance, they utilised HVO, which is hydrogenated waste vegetable oil. It's a synthetic e-fuel. But it indicates that synthetic e-fuels can play a part. They can work with existing engines, and they can produce in and around 90% reductions in carbon emissions. Large-scale hydrogen generation and refueling business cases are now active and being assessed by DFE and InvestNI. The early NI water proof of concept was rated at 33 kilowatt electrolyzer. That early test has proven successful. Oxygen and hydrogen have been generated by an electrolyzer for use by NI water. This was then scaled up to a larger pilot project, DFE funded over the last year to 5 million for a 1 megawatt rated electrolyzer to show how the oxygen and hydrogen created in the test program can then be used in relation to a wastewater treatment facility. This has proven that oxygen in this manner can improve the efficiency of the wastewater treatment. That project is scalable across NI Water's asset base and actually provides us a tremendous technology opportunity and a tremendous opportunity to sustainably grow our wastewater treatment without increasing the footprint of such facilities. There have been a number of funding programs. Many will have seen the DFE easing, Funding Innovation for Net Zero, which reflects the funding programs available across the UK and looks to coalesce all of those into a single document, basically to expedite and successfully deliver applications to the likes of the Net Zero Innovation Portfolio operated by BEIS. Within that massive program, you do have the Net Zero Hydrogen Fund, the Automotive Transformation Fund, the likes of the ITF, which is the Industrial Energy Transformation Fund. Coming up is the Industrial Fuel Switching Program, a whole raft of support programs that we try to deliver information on for NI companies. But looking specifically at what DFE and InvestNI have delivered over the last year, we've worked with CASE, which is the Centre for Advanced Sustainable Energy, to deliver the Green Innovation Fund pilot, which the current application window just closed, I believe, last week. That was funded at £5 million. We are looking to develop, actually with Innovate UK as lead and InvestNI in support on the Northern Ireland side, the NI Green Innovation Fund, which is a larger fund operating over 3 years to about £30 million, basically to deliver the pilot level large scale projects we need to gain traction in further developing the hydrogen economy. We also have, in terms of the lower scale TRL, technical feasibility side of things, we have the InvestNI R&D program, and then smaller short-lived elements of focused support, like some SBRIs come out from UKRI, but then we also work closely with our DERA colleagues in terms of a green growth opportunity, how we can work together to deliver and help DERA with their green growth budget and delivering the support. So some concluding insights which we hope to get across. The successful collaboration within government that helped to deliver the NI energy strategy does continue as focus shifts to the enabling action plan and hydrogen. The working groups, the key stakeholders, the key officials do continue to work as the action plan is delivered over the next year. And we are currently looking at what key actions come next in the following tranche of 3 years. So that's a rolling program as we continue towards net zero by 2050. DFE and UAG-NI are engaged on the UK-wide regulators forum with BEIS to consider the next steps in legislating the hydrogen economy. We're working very closely with the BEIS leads with regards of hydrogen safety, compliant regulations for industrial boilers, for example, and the ongoing village trials and the likes of the high deploy program and the high free heat program. Those discussions are still ongoing. DFE is engaged on the UK Hydrogen Advisory Council. We are working closely with the hydrogen business models teams and all of the lead directors in that respect. And we do sit on the Industrial Decarbonisation Policy Board across the UK. And I would just note that in closing, 2021 and 2022 were significant years in climate positions for NI, with the launch of the NI Energy Strategy, which is intrinsically linked to the DFE 10X Economic Vision paper. We have worked closely and supported dear colleagues in the Green Growth Strategy, and have welcomed delivery of the NI Climate Change Bill. So thank you for the time on the call this morning, and I look forward to a discussion and taking some Q&A.
Okay, thank you very much, Eddie. That was very informative. We do have a number of questions that people have submitted prior to the event, and some from the members of the group as well. So perhaps if we can just begin the Q&A. In the development of hydrogen policy options, to what extent is DFE undertaking work initiatives on a cross-departmental basis? And I think the rationale really for that question comes from the fact that to deliver hydrogen, we need to deliver a full economy from production, storage, and end user, which makes it different from, I guess, renewable energy generation, where the challenge was simply to get the electron into the grid, where we've a much larger challenge in terms of hydrogen.
Yeah, there's a few there's a few key words that came across there, John. Challenge is one of them. We recognise the scale of the challenge because we're effectively looking to transition a well-developed advanced economy in a different direction, utilising hydrogen and other advanced renewable technologies and fuels to deliver a diverse energy structure. So in working on the energy strategy, it's a cross-executive document. In terms of working groups, we had multiple working groups feeding into ourselves and DFE. Within Energy Group, I think we had something like 8 teams specialising across the energy structure, but then also we incorporated DFI leads, DERA leads, DFC leads, and even further afield, from the executive office, we'll be able to draw in expertise from other jurisdictions. We participated in the UK Canada Hydrogen Week, for example. But that early work has really delivered the collaborative network, and the key, it's informed us of the key officials who are working in all the diverse areas, who needs to be involved with who, and those discussions and that work does continue. We've set up a number of additional working groups. For example, we have the interdepartmental biomethane working group, which is obviously focused on biomethane and getting that into the gas network. But then there's also the EV task force, for example. And on the hydrogen side, we have been developing the obviously comms with yourselves and expertise with yourselves, but then the research work carried out by AMIC at Queen's and DFE Matrix on the Frontiers Economics piece. Those 2 key pieces of work are looking at how we go from 2020 to 2050, and it's split into immediate next steps and then looking at tranches of where we need to be to deliver on net zero. But it's a very agile, changing workspace as the technology comes to the fore. So equally, we are liaising directly with a lot of companies and working heavily with our sector leads in Invest NI, and to be honest, leaning heavily on the directors in Invest NI to get us to key contacts to the key companies that we see helping to deliver in this frankly very interesting field.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. The next question, in terms of the energy strategy, it acknowledged that to deliver the use of a hydrogen blend in the gas network, existing legislative provisions would have to be revised. Can you discuss what work has been done on this to date? Have you envisaged this process? How do you envisage the process developing, and what role the regulator will play in such a review?
Well, I suppose kicking off, the terms of hydrogen to the grid. In dealing with hydrogen, it's the safety case is paramount, no matter what we do. So we worked very closely, and I would stress that the regulator sits on the regulators forum across the UK. We're doing a lot of peer-to-peer learning, and we're involved in review of the the number of BEIS projects, looking at high for heat and high deploy, and then the villages villages program so far, learning to see what can be achieved and what can be safely carried out. So we can easily go to 28% of a blend safely, but 20% is required as the benchmark safe standard where we can blend to the grid. Now, in terms of how we get across that in the legislative fashion, yes, we are in detailed discussions with BEIS. There has been a legislative review carried out across the UK for all of the options for blending, and like we're in discussions with the regulator at the moment on that. Now, biomethane, because it was further down the chain of maturity, it took the fore in legislative discussions, but we are started now on the hydrogen, I suppose, just to get that into the grid.
I suppose 2 points to draw out of that, Eddie. In terms of a support scheme, if BEIS are minded to go down the route of a CFD as a production subsidy, the risk then for developers is going to be a volume risk, as in they have to produce and sell the hydrogen in order to claim the benefit, and the lack of any large scale end users with not having the industrial hubs that they would have in GB makes the gas grid quite important in terms of allowing the hydrogen economy to move on in NI. And although we can learn from those projects in GB in terms of the cadence projects at Keele University, for example, that there's obviously a need for a UK demonstration project. And in terms of funding that from the UK pots, is there any recognition that NI would need its own demonstrator in terms of gas to grid, which would require a public funding, given that it is going to be a demonstrator?
Yeah. Well, I suppose there's a few things we can reflect on there. There's immediate subsidy support in terms of the RTFO for hydrogen for transport. But in addition, then through the hydrogen business models, there's £100 million pot available for hydrogen used for heat. And as far as we understand, those could be claimed in addition to other support schemes. For example, if someone is operating a wind farm with ROCs, they can then link an electrolyzer and claim additional items in that respect. What you mentioned there about the gas network, yes, 100%. We see the gas network as key to our decarbonisation pathway. It is a superb, mature delivery mechanism for green gas, and we expect it to grow as it has been doing so. But going further afield from that, we talk about pilot level demonstration projects. Yes, we do have access to the Net Zero Innovation Portfolio operated by BEIS. It's worth billions across a number of support programs. But Northern Ireland, as you know, does have some niche energy differences. So we do recognise the need for a niche support mechanism in there. So that's where the larger Green Innovation Challenge Fund comes into play. We're positioning that to focus on the liquid synthetic fuel development. And we're looking at hydrogen hubs, a true hub. So not just Net Zero Hydrogen Fund looks at hydrogen generation. We want to look at a hub. So it's generation with compression, for example, with storage opportunities, and trying to draw on refueling. So we do have that fund to deliver pilot level demonstrators, and at a level where they're scalable, a level of maturity where they're scalable, but a level of scale where we do see them as being excellent first step traction developers within the early economy.
Okay, thank you. This all sounds pretty positive then, Eddie. Taking it from a different angle, I think we were looking at the UK impact in terms of how we sit with the Republic of Ireland, obviously, the ISEM, etc., and having not having a competitive disadvantage with our neighbours. How can we ensure that we sufficiently align our hydrogen vision with that of the Republic of Ireland, and what opportunities is there for cross-border cooperation?
It's a good point, John. Obviously energy in whatever medium can travel. So whenever we started the initial strategy work, it's clearly recognized that hydrogen has export potential. So whenever we were developing the hydrogen business models and contributing to the BEIS leads who were ultimately delivering the policies there, a clear definition around what green hydrogen was needed to be ascertained, because we needed to ensure we weren't at a disadvantage if we wanted to export hydrogen. What we class as green hydrogen needs to be equally seen as green hydrogen in other jurisdictions, or you would be prejudiced in your exports. And I believe we've arrived at an embedded carbon ratio where that's equally transferable to other jurisdictions. But in terms of practical projects, through the GenCom network, I sit on the steering committee there. There are tremendous opportunities in the EU partnering programme. We remain active in incoming EU projects through GenCom, but we are hoping to invigorate project applications with our colleagues in ROI for projects in the south, projects in the north. Whenever you look at the EU transport requirement of having a refueling hub every 100 to 150 miles, I think it is, there's clear need there where we can have synergy. So if we look at a hydrogen refueler, I'm not sure what you call them now, but a rapid recharging center, a high kilowatt EV charging center, you bring in synthetic fuels into the mix there, and compressed biomethane, for example, have true refueling hubs placed around north and south. That's an excellent opportunity to have a linked up green corridor, which we hope to develop.
And I know one of the questions we did get touched on the how green is hydrogen in terms of blue and green hydrogen in terms of export. I don't believe the REPowerEU report policy document issued in the last day or so actually confirmed what the requirement for green hydrogen is in terms of composition. If that was to differ from the UK level, how could that be dealt with, Eddie? Because it would obviously place an issue in terms of, I presume it would cost more in CapEx to produce green hydrogen that would comply with Europe's standard than it would if the UK's is lower. So how practically would we deal with that NI wouldn't be at a disadvantage?
We've already floated the idea whenever the BEIS leads were developing the hydrogen standard. We did recognise that this more so on the blue hydrogen side, certain technologies certain technologies are useful in certain conditions, certain capture techniques are useful in certain industries, certain technologies, and at the end of that you do end up with different levels of embedded carbon. So we suggested a floating scale across of what the green hydrogen was. So the range is, it's not quite large, but there's definitely a range of where green hydrogen sits to consider the different opportunities in carbon capture, and recognition that sliding scale can develop over time as the technology matures. So it's really a case of, and to be fair, there's even different opportunities of the way carbon can be captured. We're aware of maturing direct air carbon capture technology, and then the carbon techniques themselves, the capturing techniques themselves, whether they're through a lattice structure or there's so many different ways to capture carbon. We've kept that quite open,
okay,
in that respect, but we do expect those levels to compose themselves as the technology matures.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Just on to our fourth question. In terms of the energy crisis caused by Russia's war in Ukraine, it's further underscored the present need for energy self-sufficiency. How has that major geopolitical event impacted the planned approach of the energy strategy, particularly when considering hydrogen, which offers the chance to develop an indigenous energy source?
Well, I suppose that the first thing to reflect on there, Energy Group was largely focused on delivering the energy strategy in a just transition and a fair manner. Once we move to the enabling stage and the action plan stage, we're now in Energy Group changed its structure and restructured to suit the new area that we're in. Equally, in response to the energy security and the issues with our energy supply, the war in Ukraine has brought about, Energy Group has again immediately restructured and has, in a fairly agile manner, restructured to focus on immediately energy efficiency. For example, using less energy will reduce costs and reduce our emissions, and that's an immediate win effectively, because it improves our for example, particulates to atmosphere emissions from combustion. But at the same time, our work, because of the initial strategy, did consider the sort of early teasing out of synthetic fuels and what that meant. So it's something that we, to be fair, we have transitioned sections of our work immediately to focus on the opportunities of synthetic liquid fuels and e-fuels, and it's something that we hope to focus on over the next number of months, particularly with delivery partners in InvestNI and the Centre for Advanced Sustainable Energy. I can't really talk too much more about that, but there is work ongoing which we hope to be able to support some further development in that field.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Eddie. And a final question. Are there any lessons which can be learned from the gas industry and transferred to the emerging hydrogen sector?
Well, yes, I guess I alluded to it in the presentation. Our engineering workforce can be reskilled, and it's ultimately necessary to be reskilled whenever you're working with hydrogen compliant technology. But the underlying systems and engineering that our existing gas network has, it's a mature gas network. Obviously, things do need to be changed out, connections and flanges, for example, but the PE pipe network is hydrogen compliant and will continue to be used. So reskilled engineers will recognize a lot of the new hydrogen network as it comes into play, hydrogen, methane, biomethane sort of blend. But it's shown that it comes back to the safety case. Any new fuels can only be classed as safe whenever they're equally as safe as the incumbent fuel that they are replacing. So the existing hazard mitigation risk assessment methodology that will be carried forward into the hydrogen economy, our existing structures around hydrogen regulation, gas regulation management, that will continue. But there is a tremendous opportunity whenever that existing capability is growing into the advanced nature of working closely with hydrogen.
Yeah. Okay, and I've just say we do have a couple of questions just in the Q&A tab as well. In terms of blending hydrogen into the gas network, do you think NI is on track to have the capacity to supply the required volume of green hydrogen for blending into the gas network?
It goes back to what you mentioned earlier on, John. I think there's a tremendous early opportunity in blending synthetic fuels, because that can be mixed with the bio waste, for example, from our circular economy, or the agri-food waste sector, or linked directly to direct air capture or carbon capture. That hydrogen blend can create e-fuels because the immediate needs there. Mm-hmm. Engines exist, and those e-fuels and synthetic fuels can go into those existing engines. And as we transition to hydrogen blend, as I say, we can go to 20% with existing boilers. Once we go beyond not even just beyond, whenever you get to the point where you're creating a substantial volume of synthetic fuel and you are blending 20% hydrogen to the grid, that will be a tremendous volume. And it does carry us forward a number of years. We are currently working with the regulator to assess that timeline. but equally we're planning ahead to, you know, the likes of Bosch, for example, or developing conversion kits for existing boilers where you can go beyond the 20%. But then we're also looking ahead to hydrogen-ready boilers and what that means, and, you know, the likes of solid oxidizing fuel cells, which can operate off a biomethane hydrogen blend. It doesn't see the difference. Those will create the electricity with byproduct heat, for example. They're scalable, modular. Where do they sit in our homes? Where do they sit commercially? My strategy development has always keeping in mind an agile approach, because the technology is refreshingly still in development for a lot of these answers.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to keep our strategy open to allow the technology to come into play, and we're seeing that just on the horizon.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. And next question from the tab is, how closely is DFE tracking development of EU's RED III, given ISEM grid injection and other opportunities for hydrogen export?
I suppose we're working closely with the GenCom network, who are working closely then in turn with EU partners. We haven't strategically directly been tracking that, but as I say, we do continue to work closely with partners who are working in the EU. And we're trying to, I suppose our focus is to ensure any EU funding we're partnering is available. We're looking to secure some of that funding for Northern Ireland.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. I think we're just at the end of our time now, so I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank you for joining us today and providing us with a very informative presentation, packed with lots of information, particularly with regard to funding opportunities. So I'm sure many of the attendees can look further into that. Just like to thank Alicia and Belmont Strategy as well for helping organise today's event for Hydrogen NI, so it's very much appreciated. As I said at the outset, we should have a version of the event today available for anyone who hasn't been able to attend, or if anyone would like to rewatch it, let us know and we can hopefully circulate that to you. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, John. Thank you.